it's an ideological shutdown. What I've learned is that there seems to be an undercurrent of thinking that's happening right now, whereas like, let's say I don't validate your feelings, then I'm actually committing a harm to you.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is what I'm worried about, is that like my story invalidates the feelings of some other people, but people have to dig into this, and explore,
Mhm.
look, and ultimately look for the peace.
Adam Sos here for Rebel News, bringing you an update on our banbillc4.com campaign. We're urging you to go to that URL, check it out, sign our petition, and send an email with our one-click option to let people know that you're opposed to this bill. This bill at face value seems like a standard conversion therapy bill, but when you start looking at the definitions, it becomes extremely problematic. This bill fundamentally undermines people's rights to access whichever sort of therapy they deem best for them. It is a marginalizing bill, and it is a bill that furthermore undermines religious freedoms in this country. I'm going to be joined in just a moment by Hudson, who is going to share his testimony about his experience and share his concerns about Bill C-4. So, Hudson, if you could just let me know, maybe first off, why you became concerned about Bill C-4.
Sure. One of the biggest reasons was because I was afraid that if a bill like this came out, then people with a story like mine, we wouldn't be able to share our stories, often involving like, being touched by the love of God and how we've striven to devote our lives to Him, and how that has just led us to have transformed lives overall in many ways. I've found that there's some people who believe that in and of itself could amount to conversion therapy by us sharing our stories.
Mhm.
So that's kind of unsettling.
And for those folks who maybe aren't familiar with you, can you share just like a little bit about your story, maybe the Cole's Notes version?
Sure, Cole's Notes version.
Yeah.
Same-sex attractions and transgender inclinations, what they be called today, are both part of my story. And somehow I found myself back. I found my way back into the Catholic Church, the last place the world said I could ever look, and I've never looked back. And in there, I found like the peace, joy, hope, freedom, love,
Mhm.
all those things that I was looking for in the world, and I found it there in the church. And I know that negotiating the whole same-sex attractions and transgender inclinations, it's not like there was never a word of like trying to change me or anything like that. It was just people were just invested in trying to help me discover the love of Jesus more
Mhm.
than I already knew, right?
Yeah.
And I there came a point where I just needed to, for reasons of my own, I knew I needed to do that. I knew I wanted to do that, and then I did that, and that impacted all areas of my life, and especially including things like self-control and like learning, like keeping my eyes pointed towards like spiritual direction so that I could just make better decisions in life.
Mhm.
And a lot of that took me out of other tendencies, let's say, of like being thirsty for like love and attention from the world, things that don't actually fulfill anyway. I don't know. A short story is I it's helped reform me as a man, and I'm an ongoing project and a journey and stuff, and I get that. But yeah, like I've the for in my story, like I mean, once there was a restoration of sorts, and set in my sense of being a man,
Mhm.
and alongside growing in that in ways that I didn't know at the time, I noticed that the same-sex romantic attractions diminished, and I was like, oh, I didn't notice that till after that happened.
Yeah.
And the similar thing with transgender inclinations, it was I had to no longer become scared of being a man, because I did there was lots of the world of man that I didn't understand, I didn't know, I didn't feel like I belonged,
Yeah.
and that just kind of, as the fear went down and I trusted the Lord more, I was able to enter into that more. And then I noticed one day that I wasn't experiencing transgender inclinations anymore. I was like, oh, I wonder what happened. And so I was able to trace it back to that sort of thing. So
So one of the concerns, obviously, with Bill C-4, originally, I think the notion of conversion therapy, the sort of traditional forced, coercive conversion therapy that we hear about, there's already laws in place to prevent that. That's concerning. And that is clearly something we probably would both condemn.
oh yeah.
What happens with Bill C-4 though is it becomes extremely problematic because someone like you, who would you say you were ever forced to undergo these conversations with pastors, or was or people that you're talking to, or was it something that you freely sought out?
I I was never forced into any type of conversation like this. In fact, I know some people who were greatly harmed by what we would think of conversion therapy, where they were trying to force their change. It horrible stuff. And of
Yeah.
course, I think anybody would agree that that kind of stuff is ridiculous. What I'm worried about is I've had some people voice to me that anything short of full promotion equals conversion therapy. And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk about that, right? Because at the end of the day, in my life, there was definitely a conversion of heart, and that's because of Jesus Christ and entering into that and choosing that for myself, and having people to support me to not not to change attractions or gender stuff, but
Yeah.
to help me like taste the love of Christ more.
Yeah.
And that I worry about that there being a chilling effect, that if people know that maybe something like that is part of someone's story, that they'll be afraid to talk about that because
Yeah.
they might not know what is okay and what's not okay,
Yeah. Just generally speaking, what Bill C-4 could do would be, it's very infantilizing. It could take someone like you, someone who's maybe having some questions, maybe experiencing same-sex attraction, having some transgender inclinations, and that person, I think, regardless of who they are, has every bit as much decency as you or I. They have innate human decency. They have the freedom, and I think we should treat them with respect, to allow them to seek out different opinions, to seek out different voices. You had that opportunity. No one forced you, but you had the freedom to do that. And that freedom is likely going to be ultimately taken away, deprived, and made very much illegal by Bill C-4.
Yeah, to me, it seems like that is probably going to be the case. And even if it doesn't by the letter of the law, I'm still concerned that enough people will be scared that it could put them in trouble, so they just won't talk about it. But I do encourage people to actually read the law, not just like the headline from what people, it's going to get characterized a certain way, and ultimately I think that if there's truth behind if there's truth behind things, people won't be afraid to have questions asked, right? Like anybody can ask me a question. I don't really care. That's fine. But like if I was trying to twist things, it'd be like, no. I want people to look into this.
Well, and it's nice to see people who've experienced stories like this, people like yourself, advocating for conversations. What we're seeing very often politically, Bill C-4 is almost the poster child of it, is an ideological shutdown of conversations, and dialogue is vital to society. Yeah, so go ahead.
It's an ideological shutdown. What I've learned is that there seems to be an undercurrent of thinking that's happening right now, where it's like, let's say I don't validate your feelings, then I'm actually committing a harm to you. And it's like, this is what I'm worried about, is that like my story invalidates the feelings of some other people, but people have to dig into this, and explore. Look, and ultimately look for the peace. Like, even if like my heart's been touched by Christ, I know this, and it's like they could make it so that even saying any piece of my story is illegal, but they can't illegalize the love of God, and that's what I'm hoping maybe will get brought to the surface. Cards are being revealed, and it's like, well, maybe the peace that I have can be revealed, and maybe people will want it.
Well, I want to thank you for coming forward, sharing your story. It's wonderful to see that people like you are keeping the conversation alive. I think very much as Bill, it was intended at shutting the conversation down. But I know your story matters, and people who have stories like yours, wherever they are on the spectrum, those stories deserve to be heard, because you're every bit as important as anyone else. So thank you so very much for coming forward and sharing your story.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, I want to thank Hudson for providing us with his perspective and his concerns on Bill C-4. Again, I'm urging you to consider going to banbillc4.com to learn more and to sign our petition opposing this discriminatory and bigoted bill that is riddled with problematic languages and problems. It in itself comes in confrontation with fundamental charter rights that are ensured, like the right for an individual to seek the therapy they deem best, as well as religious freedoms. I want to thank you all, as always, for tuning in. For Rebel News, I'm Adam Sos. Hey, if you think that Canadians have the right to seek whichever counseling they deem best for themselves or their family members, go to banbillc4.com, sign our petition, click our one-click politics link to send an email to the people responsible for bringing Bill C-4 into law.